She knows. It's not something she needs someone to tell her. She feels it in her body, in that weight on her chest when she does everything for him and he barely gives her a thank you, in that knot in her throat when she cancels her plans again because he needs her, but when she needs him, he's always too busy. She sees it in the small signs. He doesn't ask how her day was, doesn't remember the important things she told him, doesn't include her in his future plans. She's present in his life when it's convenient, but invisible when it's not. And the worst part? She knows all of this. She's not blind. She's not naive. But even so, she stays. And each day that passes, she feels smaller, more erased, more empty. And a voice inside her doesn't stop asking, why do I accept this? Why can't I just leave? This is the silent pain of women who stay where they're not valued. And today we're unveiling the deep psychology behind this permanence. Because it's not masochism. It's not lack of options. And it's not because she likes to suffer. It's a complex combination of conditioning, trauma, fear, and psychological patterns so rooted that she doesn't even realize she's living in them. And without understanding what really keeps her where she's not valued, she'll spend her life accepting crumbs and calling it love. Let's start by dismantling the illusion she carries. She doesn't stay because she's foolish. She stays because her brain is operating in a distorted belief system about what she deserves. And this has roots in attachment psychology. When she grows up in an environment where affection is conditional, where she only received attention when she behaved a certain way, when she was useful, when she didn't bother anyone, her brain learned something devastating. She needs to earn love. It's not given because she exists. So she developed what psychologists call anxious attachment. She becomes hypervigilant to the needs of others. She adapts, molds herself, diminishes herself, all to avoid being rejected. And when she finds a partner who treats her like an option, who underutilizes her, who gives her crumbs of attention, something inside her doesn't see this as a sign to leave, sees it as a challenge to be one. Her unconscious whispers, if I try harder, if I'm more patient, more understanding, more everything, he'll finally see me. He'll value me, and then, finally, I'll prove I'm worthy. But the brutal truth is this. She's not fighting for the relationship. She's fighting to prove to herself that she's not disposable. And until she realizes this, she'll keep accepting mediocre treatment from people who should treat her as a priority. Now the question arises, why does she specifically stay? Why do her friends leave bad relationships and she doesn't? Because the pattern of staying where she's not valued almost always starts long before this relationship. If she grew up invisible, where her parents didn't truly see her, where her achievements went unnoticed, where her pains were minimized, she learned that not being seen is normal. And worse, she learned that she needs to do extraordinary things just to receive ordinary attention. If she grew up being the emotional support for broken adults, the daughter who took care of the depressed mother, who calmed the explosive father, who held the family on her back, she learned that her value is in what she does, not in who she is. If she grew up hearing you should be grateful, don't complain so much, that's not a reason to be upset, she learned that her needs are inconvenient and that she should settle for less. So when she's in a relationship where she does 90% of the effort, she's always available but he rarely is, she remembers everything about him but he forgets even her birthday, she adapts to his life but he changes nothing for hers, something inside her doesn't scream get out of here. It screams, this is familiar. I know how to handle this. If I try harder, maybe this time will be different. But it won't be different, because she's trying to heal the wound of never having been a priority by staying with someone who confirms exactly that. And until she sees the pattern, she'll keep choosing people who make her feel exactly like she's felt her whole life. Almost enough, but never completely. As she remains where she's not valued, the symptoms become increasingly destructive. She develops what psychologists call progressive self-erasure. She stops talking about her achievements because he doesn't care, stops sharing her pains because he minimizes them, stops having strong opinions because he disagrees with everything. And slowly, very slowly, she becomes an erased version of who she was. She begins normalizing the unacceptable. At least he doesn't cheat on me. At least he doesn't yell at me. At least he's here. She measures the relationship not by what it gives her, but by what it doesn't take away. And this is the thought pattern of someone who has given up on being happy and is just trying not to be completely destroyed. She develops relational hyperresponsibility. She becomes the only one who remembers dates, who plans activities, who starts conversations, who solves problems. And when she complains that she's exhausted, he says, "I didn't ask you to do all that." And technically, he's right. But she knows that if she doesn't do it, nothing happens. The relationship simply dies of starvation. And most dangerous, she begins internalizing the devaluation. She starts believing that maybe she really isn't that interesting. Maybe she really is too intense. Maybe her expectations are too high. And she transforms into her own executioner, justifying the mediocre treatment she receives. And she confuses permanence with loyalty, when in reality it's just fear disguised as commitment. This is the psychology of a woman who stays where she's not valued. It's not just about valuing herself. It's a complex process of slow self-destruction, where she trades pieces of her essence for crumbs of a love that was never really love. So what happens to this woman when she stays? She becomes the adult who completely lost connection with what she really wants and deserves, because she spent so much time adapting to his needs that she forgot she also has needs. She becomes the woman who apologizes for existing, for having feelings, for wanting attention, for expecting reciprocity, as if love were a privilege she doesn't deserve. She becomes the type of woman who feels guilty when she asks for something simple like quality time, celebrates alone when something good happens because he's busy, cries alone when something bad happens because he's not good with emotions, pretends to be fine when she's shattered so she won't be a burden, justifies his behavior to friends with more conviction than he would himself. She inherits a life where she's constantly making herself small to fit in a relationship that never had space for her whole self. But here's the truth that hurts. She's not staying out of love. She's staying out of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of not finding anyone better. Fear of having wasted so much time and leaving empty-handed. Fear of proving to herself that she really isn't enough. And while she's operating from fear, any crumb will seem like a feast. Any minimal gesture will seem big. And she'll keep accepting 10% effort and calling it a relationship. Now let's talk about how this pattern manifests in daily life in subtle but devastating ways. In the silence, she talks excitedly about something that moves her. He's on his phone. She stops talking mid-sentence. He doesn't even notice. She swallows the humiliation and promises herself she won't get so excited anymore. In the plans, she asks, "Can we do something together this weekend?" He says, "I'll see." Weekend arrives. He made plans with friends. She wasn't included or considered. She spends the weekend alone but says it's fine. In the crises, she's going through something difficult at work, with family, with health. She needs him. He listens for 5 minutes and changes the subject. Or worse, says you're overthinking and makes her feel dramatic for needing support. In the comparisons, she sees how he treats his friends. Attentive, present, funny. She sees how he treats her. Distracted, distant, functional. And she realizes with crystal clarity, she doesn't receive even half of what he gives to people who should matter less than she should matter. In birthdays, dates, moments, he forgets, again, or remembers at the last minute and gives her something generic, while she planned his for weeks. And when she gets upset, he says, "You know I'm not good with these things," as if that were an excuse not to try. And each of these micro-rejections alone seems small, but added up, they form a clear and consistent message. She's not a priority. One of the most important questions she needs to ask herself now isn't how do I make him value me more, but rather, why do I accept being devalued? Because the hard truth is, he only devalues her because she allows it. And she only allows it because, somewhere deep, she believes she doesn't deserve better. Maybe she believes that relationships are always like this and she's too demanding. If she leaves, she won't find anyone better. She's already invested so much time that leaving now would be wasteful. He deep down loves her, just doesn't know how to show it. She's not perfect either, so she has no right to complain. And while she carries these beliefs, she'll keep accepting treatment that should make her run in the opposite direction. This is how she stops staying where she's not valued. Not by waiting for him to change, but by changing her own belief about what she deserves. This is how she recovers her power. Not by working on the relationship, but by recognizing that some things can't be fixed because they were never built right. This is how she frees herself. Not by proving her value to him, but by finally believing in her value independent of his validation. But she can't be authentic in a place where her authenticity isn't welcome. She can't set boundaries with someone who doesn't respect her basic needs. She can't be vulnerable with someone who uses her vulnerability against her. She's not staying because the relationship is good. She's staying because she convinced herself it's the best she'll get. But what if the truest version of this is, it's the best she accepts, not the best she deserves? So if there's a woman listening who stays where she's not valued, certain truths need to be acknowledged. She's not needy for wanting basic attention. He's negligent for not giving it. She's not demanding for wanting reciprocity. He's selfish for not reciprocating. She's not dramatic for feeling invisible. She is invisible to him, and this must also be understood. He won't wake up one day and decide to value her. People don't change how they treat someone unless there are consequences. And while she stays, silent, adapting, swallowing hurts, she's teaching him he can devalue her without losing her. But there's hope, and hope isn't in him realizing her value. Hope is in her realizing she deserves more. And realizing this means making a list of all the times she felt small in the relationship, rereading that list and asking herself, would I treat my best friend like this? Starting to talk about her needs without apologizing, observing how he reacts. This will tell her everything she needs to know, stopping justifying his behavior to herself. And if after all this nothing changes, she has her answer. And the answer isn't I'm not enough. The answer is he doesn't have the emotional capacity to love me the way I deserve. And she can stay anyway, can spend another 5, 10, 20 years trying to be loved by someone incapable of seeing her. Or she can leave, not with anger, not with resentment, but with clarity. The clarity of someone who finally understood. Love shouldn't make her feel invisible. Relationship shouldn't make her feel small. And staying isn't loyalty when she's betraying herself. She deserved someone who saw her, truly. She deserved someone who chose her actively, not passively. She deserved someone for whom valuing her was automatic, not something she needs to beg for. And maybe she didn't have that, but she still has an entire life ahead. And this time she can choose differently, not choosing someone perfect, but choosing to never again stay where she's not a priority. The type of choice that says, I deserve to be seen. I deserve to be heard. I deserve to be loved with the same intensity that I love. And if there's someone listening now with tears streaming down, it's because a part of them always knew. She wasn't crazy. She wasn't exaggerating. She was being devalued. And now, finally, she can stop accepting. Not tomorrow. Not when he gets better. Now. Because the life she's letting pass while waiting to be valued, that life is the only one she has. And she won't waste it anymore.